Everybody, I'd like to call the regular commission meeting for Tuesday, June the 12th, 2012 to order. If you have a cell phone, please put it on silence or turn it off. And tonight, the pastor, Doug Mund from the Grace Fellowship Church, will give the invocation. And if you'll please stand and stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Lord God Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, we come before you today as your humble servants, admitting that without you we can do nothing. We look to you alone for wisdom, strength, and comfort. Now, Lord, we implore you for your mercy on our city. Revive us, bring us hope, and send your Holy Spirit of restoration to all of us. We pray your blessing over Coffeyville. We pray for those in need and those with plenty. We pray that those with blessing would graciously share what you have given. We pray for those in need that they would find work and provision. We pray that those who steal and reject order and justice would instead turn their hearts and souls to you, flee from evil, and seek honest gain and employment. Lord, we look forward to your new heaven and earth, and until then we pray that your will be done, bringing revival and a heart of repentance to your people in Coffeyville. Tonight in this meeting, give us your wisdom, your grace, and your mercy to our leaders. In the name and character of your Son, Jesus Christ, let it be so.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Again, I'd like to welcome everybody tonight. The next item of business is the 2012 Appropriation Ordinance AO-12-10 in the amount of $1,071,933.96. Commissioners, do we have any questions?
Have none.
I got a couple. First question I have is for Chris. I noticed that we, on page 2, Zotac mini PCs, I think you've told me once before, but I don't remember what we use these for.
Those are our stock replacement PCs. Most of those went down to PD.
Okay. So we're going to the small mini PCs now instead of the, okay. Next, Stephanie, on page, I think it's 15, we have an invoice, or we're paying Consolidated Fleet Services. What's that for?
That's safety testing for the electric utility equipment, their vehicles, and all of their tools for distribution.
Do we do this every year?
Yes.
Page 16, Creative Product Sourcing for DARE.
That is some of the DARE supplies that they use during that program for the school year. Comes out of the alcohol liquor money.
Didn't we, within the last several months, haven't we spent a whole bunch more money doing the same stuff?
Yes.
Pencils and pens?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of a budget do we have for them?
That one, I believe the police department gets $7,000 a year out of that one.
Page 29, Encore Limited, Impaired Vision Goggles, DVD, for $1,200.
That again is some of the not drug money, it's the alcohol money. Those are the goggles that the kids can put on that makes them look like they've got impaired vision and I guess simulates being drunk.
So we're buying more of them? We already have some.
I think these are, of course, this would be a newer pair, but the pair that they have, I think, was getting old, and this will give them a second pair.
Okay.
Might be cheaper just to give them some cheap vodka.
I noticed also on page 31, we paid $1,050 for man lift for the Perkins Building. Was that for Jim?
Definitely, I can answer that. That is, the insurance company for our hail claim authorized an engineer to come down and do an evaluation on the building. We supplied the man lift. We billed that back to the insurance company. They approved that. So
Okay.
we'll be getting reimbursement for that product.
Did we have hail damage on that building?
Yes, that claim though is still ongoing with the insurance company. We're trying to negotiate different things here and there on that building.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Oh, go ahead.
On page 37, Meyer Equipment and Supply, it says here, the replacement of a camera, kit, and TV trailer, 16,000.
That's another one of my items. That is the camera alone that we send down the sanitary sewer lines to visually inspect. The camera that we had was obsolete and was in need of repair, so they gave us the trade-in and we purchased a new camera. It was for the trailer, it didn't include the trailer. It was
Okay.
just the camera on it.
And I think this is yours too, Jim. Midwest Fence, we paid them $9,000 for fence, was it for fence repair, a new fence, or what?
That was a new fence located at our shop out on Stark and River Road. We had a break-in a few months back, so we did security fencing around our materials, that type of stuff. We
Did you-
did get quotes.
Did you do it around from like the shop to shed area, is that?
No, it's in the north part, north of the offices.
Okay.
It's where we're eventually gonna relocate our full yard, just north of where public services at. And it's a 6-foot fence with barbed wire.
And the last one I have, Stephanie's on page 52, for relocation reimbursement.
That would be for our golf course superintendent. And that was part of his package, was we would assist up to $1,500 in relocation.
The name didn't, I guess, must have been, just didn't miss it up. That's all I've got, guys.
This isn't listed on here, but the mayor brought up something interesting. We do have a handicap accessibility program, right? For our buildings and everything. I just, on a yearly basis and making progress. I just wondered how that was doing, and it's doing fine, right? I know it's gonna be a long period, a long drawn-out affair, but we do have an established program.
We did get the report back from the consultant who went in and reviewed all of our facilities and did the report. Public service is, when we update that, we put it on actually write it on that report, and then we upload that to the website, so it's available to anybody who wants to access our ADA.
Well, I was just curious to make sure I knew we had a program and that we were following that program. Thank you. If there's no further questions, I move that we approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second?
Motion was made by Commissioner Gonzalez and seconded by Commissioner George to approve the consent agenda as presented, and that does include the Tuesday, May 22nd, 2012 minutes. Commissioner Gonzalez?
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Jones?
Aye.
Mayor George?
Aye. Next item. Regular agenda items, public hearings, special presentations, proclamations, we don't have any. So G, comments from the public. Would anybody like to get up and speak? Please give your name and your address. Evening, Mary.
Good evening, I'm Mary Wilson, live over on New Street. I thought you needed an update of the farmer's market.
Great.
It is really going good. We are having more and more vendors show up, all different kinds. I made a long list of vegetables and fruits available. You even get some interesting vegetables, like this. This is a cucumber, not a squash. And you don't peel it, you just slice it, wash it, slice it, and eat it. It's very good. Last Saturday, we had 11 vendors out there 2 were 4-H club members, around 10 years of age. They have their own gardens, and they were selling their own produce. And I thought that was really neat. We had a motel guest come down and check the farmer's market out and buy some things. Saturday was just, it was so busy. They could hardly keep up with the people that were coming to buy. Tonight, there was a couple on a motorcycle. They were passing through, and they're from Arkansas. They plan to spend the night, and they were checking out the farmer's market. So we're getting a lot of people from other places, people that are passing through here. They see the sign by the entryway there, and they stop in. And the people are really happy. Yes.
Mary, not only for the audience, but for the TV, people watching TV, could you give the times and the days at the farmer's, location, time?
Okay, the farmer's market on Saturday morning is right across from the rec center building because that's where the shade is. There's lots of shade there, so people aren't in the sun. They start around 7 o'clock in the morning and to about noon, or when all the food is gone. In the Tuesday afternoon, they start at 4 o'clock, and they go until around 7, I think it is. But they are just lovely people to work with. It's a big asset to this city to have a farmer's market like that. Last Tuesday, a week ago, was a real problem because we had a big group of people out there, and they had parked in the area where the farmers were to be parked. If you don't have your vendors side by side, your customers will miss some of the vendors. So it was kind of a little unhappy experience, but several of us talked to the drivers of the vehicles there and explained that this was for the farmers market on Tuesday evenings. And this evening, the situation was much better. Any question?
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Glad to see it growing.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? All right, we'll start on old business. Item number 1, ordinance number S-12-05, the second reading of an ordinance to vacate certain streets in the city of Coffeyville. There's been no changes from the first reading.
I make a motion to approve the ordinance number S-12-05 for second reading.
Second?
Motion was made by Commissioner Gonzalez and seconded by Commissioner Jones to approve ordinance number S-12-05 for adoption. Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones. Aye. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye. Item number 1 under new business, resolution number R-12-58, a resolution to execute a lease agreement for the City of Coffeyville Board of Trustees of the Coffeyville Regional Medical Center. City Attorney Paul Kreitz will make comments and address questions.
Thank you, Commissioners. My understanding is that the hospital has been around since about 1945, and sometime in the 1970s, it became a 501c3, and at that time, the city leased the building to the hospital, and there's been a series of leases ever since it was converted to a 501c3. The most recent lease was executed in 1996. That had a 5-year term that rolled over for 2 5-additional-year terms, which would have made that lease expire in January of this year. However, back in 2002, when the bonds were issued to do some hospital improvements, the bond documents provided that the operating lease, which is the 1996 lease, would continue until the bonds were paid. So that would put the expiration date sometime in 2018. But I guess during the audit process at the hospital, the auditors discovered that the 1996 lease, at least by the terms of the lease itself, expired in January. And so the hospital thought it would be a good idea to go ahead and renew the lease formally. And so what you have for your consideration this evening is basically the 1996 lease revamped. It's pretty much the same in terms of its substantial substantive provisions. The hospital is suggesting a term of 50 years at $1 a year. There is a provision in the lease that says that either party can terminate the lease upon 180 days' notice. So it's really a 6-month lease. I think the hospital is totally open to whatever you all want to suggest as a term. Could be a year, could be 5 years, could be 10 years, could be 99 years. So whatever you please as far as that is concerned. Other than that, I think it is substantially the same. This is really more of a housekeeping matter than anything. The lease does contain references to exhibits. Some of those references really don't have application any longer. I'm not sure that we necessarily care at this point, for example, about the hospital's current liabilities, accounts receivable, and working capital. So those references to those exhibits might be excluded in the final version of this lease. Our thought is to have you go ahead and approve the execution of the lease in its final form as we end up working out with the hospital with your guidance. If you'd rather make final approval after the lease has been completed and all the terms have been worked out, we can do that as well.
Could we just table this until we're ready to vote on a real contract?
That's fine. I mean, what I think we'd like to hear from you is, what's your comfort level with a 50-year lease if you'd rather go with a shorter term.
Can you answer just a couple of general questions for my benefit? Who operates our hospital? Is it Quorum?
Yeah, quorum.
Well, yes, I believe Quorum provides some administrative functions for the hospital.
So we basically,
But the hospital is governed by a board of trustees and a board of directors. So they hire Quorum, I think, to do some of their functions.
so this contract, again, just to clarify, this contract between the city government, which owns the actual physical building and the property, is with the Board of Trustees of the hospital.
Correct.
The Board of Trustees of the hospital, in turn, hires a company to come in and run the hospital, staff it. Is that not true? Or am I wrong?
The Board of Trustees appoints the Board of Directors, and then the Board of Directors
They are the.
operates the hospital.
Is this,
And I don't think that the Quorum staffs every position at the hospital. It's my understanding they staff maybe some of the,
They only staff 2 positions.
Yeah,
It's
the CEO and the CFO.
CEO. The CNO is not, it's an employee of the hospital.
is this hospital, is it a for-profit hospital?
no.
Does it make a profit?
It's a 501c3.
So it's not run to make a profit?
No.
And it does not make a profit?
I'm not the person to answer that question. If you have questions like that, I'm certainly happy to pass them along to the hospital.
I mean, really, what I'm getting at in a general sense is I think everybody wants a hospital in our community. But the taxpayers in this town have made a huge investment in that property, and if it's, if we're leasing this property for $1 and they're making a profit, the company that's running this is making a profit out of it, I think the taxpayers ought to get some of their money back. I don't think we should be in the business of, in any kind of a setting of leasing something for 50 years, for one thing, and if they're making a profit out of that hospital, I don't understand why we're giving them rent for $1. I mean, to me, that's just insane.
Like Commissioner Gonzalez said, there's only 2 people from CORE, and that's just for management. The Board of Directors are the ones that actually run the hospital.
Yeah, and I understand that, but somebody is in charge, I mean, who's sweeping the money out of the accounts, basically, is what I'm getting at.
Just from what I gather, and I could be very wrong, Commissioner Gonzalez probably knows better than I am. Since it's a 503C, they have to take that money and use it, and they've used part of that money to expand the hospital.
Sure.
And do other programs to, maybe recruit more doctors and stuff like that. There's no, at least when I've looked at the financials that they send us,
Yeah,
it's no cash cow by any
yeah.
means.
And I understand that. But for one thing, there's no way I'd ever vote for a 50-year lease for really anything. I think that's entirely too long.
Yeah.
And I just,
I'll go along with that.
I-
don't
I
like-
felt the
I
same
don't like
way.
the 50.
I saw
Yeah.
50 years, I went crazy when AT&T made me sign a 2-year contract for a cell phone. 50 years to me is just unfathomable.
I think that
And-
was just their suggestion because it's been in existence since '96 and,
Yeah.
but sure, that's
I
fine.
think 5 years would be plenty.
From what I read in there, Paul, I think Doug Bell suggested a 50-year.
Yeah, that was
Their
his.
attorney, yeah,
Yeah.
and I agree, 5-year, I would feel more comfortable revisiting that.
Yeah.
5-year with 5-year rollovers.
Yeah, because I really don't want to hamper the future commissioners.
Right.
Oh, I agree, although it's sort of illusory anyway, because you can cancel it on 180 days' notice. So, like I say, it's really a 6-month lease. I think the point was getting something in place that, as long as the status quo is maintained, you don't have to worry about renewing it down the road.
But if I personally would like to see it all filled out,
Yeah,
because when I was going through here, at first I thought it was all done, and then I got to the back part of it, and I go, oh, no.
right,
Still got 96 dates in it and everything else.
that's right. Okay, we'll bring it back.
Okay.
And we'll look at like a 5-year initial term with 5-year rollovers.
Thank you, sir. Next item. Resolution number R-12-59, a resolution to authorize establishment of a cash security deposit with Southwest Power Pool. Finance Director Stephanie Richardson will make comments and address questions.
Mayor and Commissioners, we use the Southwest Power Pool for the electric transmission services according to our power supply contract with GRDA. We have received notice from SPP, which is Southwest Power Pool, of a total potential exposure in excess of our total credit limit established with that organization. We currently have a line of credit of $250,000 with SPP, and once we reach 90% of that line of credit, or $225,000, then we're notified of a potential violation of the contract. All the invoices except one so far this year has been in excess of that amount, and they're now requesting that we post a financial security with the company. In order to do that, we have two options. We could make a cash security deposit, or we could issue a letter of credit. We went through the process of trying to determine what it would take to issue a letter of credit. They have specific requirements as to what type of banking institution that can come from. And we found that we would have at least a $4,000 expense each year related to issuing that letter of credit and keeping that updated annually. We checked with SPP about just doing the cash security deposit. They handle that much like the city handles our security deposits from customers. We would pay that to SPP. They keep that in a separate banking account. It's an interest-bearing account, and each year in January, the city's credited back the interest that we've earned on that money each year. So based on the cost of what it would be for the letter of credit versus earning interest on the money that's sitting there, we are proposing that we go ahead and issue the cash security deposit in the amount of $200,000. Staff has done some calculations to make sure that amount is adequate, and we do feel that it is based on our current usage and what we've projected. If it ever got to the point that it's not enough, we would come back to the commission to approve adding to that cash security deposit. If you have any questions, we've got electric department personnel here to answer those. No. I tried to get you involved.
I got a couple.
Okay.
All right, you're telling us that we're going to put up 200, or you're recommending that we take 200,000 in cash and put it with them. So we're going to keep the 250,000 or 225 that's already there in
Yes.
credit
Yes.
and pay 2,000? I guess my question is, they won't accept, by reading your stuff that you sent to us, they won't accept it from a normal bank that we have here in town, but they are really. Correct?
They'd be getting actual cash, so they'll have,
Well, I understand that. But when you sent this packet out to us, you're saying that we have to go to a different financial institution to issue the additional $200,000, because evidently they changed their terms. We've already got a $250,000, 225 credit already with them. Letter of credit.
the 250 that we have is with SPP. That's not through a banking institution, that's a line of credit, not a letter of credit.
Okay. It's just a line of credit that a bank
Right.
has signed locally.
No, that's what the company allows us, the extent that we
Oh,
have with
okay.
the company.
I got it now.
SPP holds that note.
Yes.
so to
Yes.
speak.
Okay. So the bank then that they're going to put our deposit in, is FDIC insured?
Yes.
Is it in two separate accounts to make it, because FDIC only goes to, no, it is 200,000 now, isn't it? Correct.
It's 300 now, isn't
I
it?
think
I
it's
think it's
250.
250.
250?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then what kind of interest rate they pay us?
Right now, he said it was .15, which is about double what we're making.
Okay? Now, this is for the electric guys. Evidently, we're paying for transmission costs, so we're now pulling more electricity through the line. That's the reason
That's part of it.
this has gone up.
That's part of it, yes.
What's the other part?
The other part is, like, when we joined SPP as a transmission only member, we did that in order to get the 138 kV line upgrade base plan funded through SPP, which that is spread out amongst all of the members. Well, every time that they have some other company come in and want to do the same thing, then that's going to increase our amount that we're going to pay for that base plan funding also. So, I mean, it's a give and take. Our percentage is less than 2% of the total SPP footprint. So.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
I just have a question, maybe it's a question, but it says notified of violation. What's the violation of the contract? Is it a penalty associated with that or what?
We've not received a penalty associated with this. I think it's just kind of a notification that you've exceeded the
You don't get
limit.
so many strikes or anything, or?
Not that I'm aware of.
According to the criteria, they could cancel our transmission.
Okay, there is a penalty eventually if you keep on down that road. Well, if there are no further questions, I'm going to approve resolution number R-12-59.
Second?
Motion was made by Commissioner Gonzalez and seconded by Mayor George to approve resolution number R-12-59 for adoption. Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones. Aye. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Next item, discussion with Chaparral on pipeline easement agreement. City Attorney Paul Kreitz will make comments and introduce representatives from Chaparral.
The city was approached by Chaparral CO2 LLC several months ago about a project that would require the construction of a pipeline from the refinery, I believe, to Ponca City, or for the nitrogen fertilizer plant to Ponca City to transport CO2. We've been really talking to Chaparral in earnest for the last several weeks about the terms of an easement, and we're very close to getting to that point. We still have a few outstanding issues to work out. I feel confident that we'll do so. But in the meantime, we thought it would be appropriate, and Chaparral requested to come and visit with you all and introduce their project. So tonight with Chaparral, I believe Keith Tracy, who is the CO2 Supply and Transportation Manager, will be making a presentation to talk about the project and how the city of Coffeyville will be involved in that. Richard, you might.
Thank you, Paul, for the introduction, and Commissioners, we are very pleased to be here. My name is Keith Tracy with Chaparral Energy. We're headquartered in Oklahoma City. I want to take just a brief moment to talk to you a little bit about the project that you've been given an overview about. I'd like to first start by introducing part of our team members. Brett Biesmeyer is here. Brett, can you stand up? Brett's our project manager on our entire project. And with him is Don Wilson, facilities engineer in our CO2 area. Neil Christofferson was up here earlier today, but had to go back home. I want to introduce you a little bit about Chaparral. I want to make sure that I'm able to answer any questions you might have about what we do with CO2, carbon dioxide, and then really hone in on the three particular aspects of this project and talk a little bit about it, even the national attention that this particular project has received, and then talk about the pipeline easement, if I could. So if I could start out by introducing Chaparral. As I said, we're headquartered in Oklahoma City. We're an oil and gas production company primarily in the Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas areas. We are a little bit more oil than gas. We've got a fair amount of production every day. And as you see the graph at the bottom, we've been able to increase our production every year for many, many years. That last bullet point, I'm going to introduce you to this topic about long-term growth for our company through what we call CO2 EOR. And we're going to be talking a little bit about what we mean by EOR, and it stands for Enhanced Oil Recovery. This is a kind of a brief map of some of our activities and where we currently use carbon dioxide to inject into an oil field and are able to produce more oil that otherwise would be left stranded there. The red solid lines are pipelines that we are currently have ownership interest in. And so you see in the Panhandle area and in central Oklahoma, those have been active for 10 years and one of them active for almost 30 years. And we look forward to expanding and doing what we've done in other places by connecting to the fertilizer plant here at Coffeyville and taking it, as Paul said, to near the Ponca City area. What is CO2? It's carbon dioxide. It is it's an inert gas that's actually in the room with us today. Every time we exhale, it's carbon dioxide. Plants love it. It's non-toxic. It's not a gas to really be afraid of. It doesn't have any color or odor to it. An important point here is it's not flammable. This is unlike an oil pipeline or a gas pipeline that if you might happen to have any problem with, that could cause a really big explosion. This doesn't have that aspect to it at all. Its only characteristic that some people highlight a little bit is that it's slightly heavier than air. But that last bullet point is one I really want to focus on. Ever since the fertilizer plant has been here, it's been emitting CO2 here in this community, and that's going on 10 years plus. So we are talking about capturing all of that CO2 emission and using it to produce more domestic crude. So let me briefly talk about the three aspects or the three primary components of our particular project. It starts by capturing and compressing the carbon dioxide that currently is being vented at the fertilizer plant. A second aspect is we will pipeline that to our field, and we'll have a number of infrastructure built at our field. So I want to briefly talk about each part of this project. At the compression facility, this will be located on the south side of the fertilizer plant. There's a lot of details here. The big point is it's about 1 million tons a year of carbon dioxide that is currently being emitted that we will be capturing all of. It's electric powered, and there's a lot of compression there that we will put in a building. If I've got the right picture up next. This is a kind of a flow diagram. I can give you a copy of this later and let you look through. It kind of shows you that different pieces and parts of the compression facility that will be located here in Coffeyville under an agreement that we have with the fertilizer plant. An important aspect that I think may be good to highlight here at this point, and I'll read this bottom box. It says, when fully operational, this compression facility is expected to generate about $30,000 per month in revenue to the city just from the electricity sales alone. And by the way, our contract with fertilizer plants for 20 years plus some 10-year renewals. We anticipate being here in this community for a long time. We are new. We're glad to be here. We're excited about this project, and we look forward to a long-term, decades and decades-long relationship. This is kind of a 3D model of what the compression facility might look like, and I can kind of walk you through it briefly. Here, this yellow line here at the top, that's where the CO2 would actually be coming over from the fertilizer plant across the street south from it. It'll be going in some blowers initially to compress it. It starts out at about 1 pound of pressure. And by the time we send it through some blowers, we'll cool the gas back off and then send it through compressors and cool the gas back off and finally get it out here to a pump and then down the pipeline. The pipeline will be exiting the site at this point. It'll be up to about 2,000 pounds of pressure. So we've got electric transformers here. We'll have a water station here. So and a lot of this is going to be housed inside a building here. And we've built enough room here to expand so that we can make sure that we are capturing all the CO2 that we can. We have a great need for it, actually. Briefly, some details about the pipeline. The main points are it's about 70 miles long, and a portion of that, as was mentioned, we anticipate being able to work out an easement here to put it through and get out of the city proper as quickly as we can without any major disruptions. It is a high-pressure pipeline, but as I mentioned before, CO2 is not a flammable product. Here's the route that the pipeline, the entire route of the pipeline, starting here at Coffeyville and working our way west, mostly in Oklahoma, and over here to near Ponca City to what we call the North Burbank unit, actually one of the larger fields that we have in the area. This is a map that I'll actually come back, I want to follow through, but this is the pipeline distance beginning here at the compression facility and our proposed route, which we have worked for many, many, many months with city staff to try to make sure that we've identified the best route. And crossing 169 here would be a boring process underneath the highway, wouldn't disturb any traffic. And coming along the levee, and then along the eastern edge here of this property, just south of the Westervelt's house, and right next to the street near the campground, and then on out of town south of 8th Street. I want to cover a few more aspects of the project and then come back to this if I could. At the field, once the CO2 is delivered at the field, the CO2 will be injected into a number of different, what we call injection wells. Every single dot up there is a well that's in this small area of the entire field. So the amount of CO2 that the fertilizer plant puts off is only enough to kind of get us started at this field. The bigger dots just mean that those are wells that we've had to do some work on since last year or earlier this year to get ready for the CO2. I want to briefly talk a little bit about what happens at the field, just so you know what ends up happening with the CO2. So kind of want to walk you through what we call a closed loop system. Once the CO2 is delivered at the field, it's delivered there. The underground pipe comes up to a meter. We know exactly how much CO2 is going into the field. And then it goes to the injection well. And there's a picture of one that we use out in our Panhandle area. Then the CO2 goes underground, and it does its thing with the oil, where it actually swells the oil molecule, and with the pressure can push it over to a nearby well, the production well. And here at the production well, we'll receive some oil, hopefully a lot, some water that's entrained in the reservoir, and we'll actually see some of the CO2 come back to us. And so we collect this from a number of different wells into a single production header, and then we will take it to where we will separate out the gas or the CO2, and then we'll also do some fluid separation, separating the water from the oil. We'll sell the oil, which I kind of like to call green oil because we're using CO2 to get it, and then actually both the water and the CO2 get recycled. The CO2 goes through another compression facility and then to a pump, and it sends it right back out to the field to the injection well. And so as you see, making this circle loop from the left, it's a closed loop system. So once CO2 hits the field, it just continues to get used and used and used again. When we're finally done at the field, we've produced the last economic barrel of oil that we can, we'll just plug out the field, and all the CO2 would remain in place and stored underground. There's been quite a bit of attention that you may not know about, but I want to make you aware of. This particular project, this partnership between the fertilizer plant and Chaparral Energy has gotten national, if not international, attention. It is unique. It's helped put this community on the map in new ways. So there are a list of just some of the publications where this project has been highlighted. And there's been a couple of instances where we've been able to present specifically about the project. Both personnel from the fertilizer plant and I attended the gasification conference in October and spoke specifically about this project and had lots of questions from the audience of 600 people, about 200 of which were from China. And then just last month, was able to present again in Pennsylvania about this particular project and had lots of questions and clarifying. People are very interested in what appears to be a fairly unique project. So, as Paul mentioned, we've been working with the city staff for quite some time. I actually personally met Jim Bradshaw here in this building over a year ago to kind of begin to talk about our project. And Jim's been very helpful. We've actually considered lots of different routes of what would be the best way to get out of town, if I could say. And actually, one of Jim's suggestions has really ended up being a very fruitful path, and I think most amenable for all parties. And so it's been a very good working relationship. We presented a draft easement actually back to staff in November, and we've met a number of times. We've been here in this building many times to meet in person. We've actually met staff on site to kind of walk the route and make sure we understand what concerns there are and try to address any questions there might be. We feel like we've finalized the route, and our understanding from city staff is that they are very satisfied with the route as well. And so the route that we're showing you is a route that I think has addressed all issues. And I think we're down to the point where, as Paul Kreitz mentioned, we're down to easement terms, and we've been working through those in the past many weeks and finalizing a number of those terms just within the past 4 or 5 days. We still have a few minor issues to work out. I think you may have the latest draft, or actually we may have one that we could hand out. We're kind of at a point now where we just have a few minor items to finalize on the easement terms. Attached to the easements are certified plats of Exhibit A's, what we call Exhibit A's, that will show the precise path of the route and the temporary construction easement area where we are allowed to use and construct. So again, I wanted to bring this back up to make sure that we kind of talk about the route that we've kind of settled on. And Paul, you may be able to correct me if I'm wrong. I should have highlighted on here the exact tracts that the city owns, but my understanding is just here on the north side of 169, there's a tract, and then beginning here at the highway and running all the way down here is all city-owned path. There's a small tract in here owned, kind of near that little building, that's owned by the fertilizer plant, but otherwise the city owns most of this path until about this line, what we've kind of affectionately called the bean field. I'm not sure who owns that, but so to that point, that would be the southern point that's on city-owned property. And so that kind of concludes the formal part of this presentation, what we wanted to provide as initial information. I understand that we're not here for official approval of any particular document. We feel like we've worked through pretty diligently with a number of issues. The number of items that remain outstanding are very, very few. But we wanted to talk and make sure that we take an opportunity to tell you about the project. We think it's a very great win-win, not only for us in the fertilizer plant, but also for the city of Coffeyville. We think you're part of a very unique process and is getting great attention. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and if I can't answer them, I'll certainly invite Brett or Don up to answer those questions.
Do you have a proposed target date when you would like to start and completion?
We'd like to start next week and be done with construction before the fair. If we are not able to get started here pretty soon, I can't promise that we'd be out of there in time for the fair, and we'd like to be out of there by that time.
Paul, where are we at as far as an electrical contract with these folks? Are they wanting a longer-term electrical contract for the electric service?
Who would answer that? Yeah.
The power will actually come through the fertilizer meter, so it's really considered part of our process. It's in the fertilizer boundaries that were agreed to with the city and fertilizer business in terms of those infrastructure that would be served by the fertilizer.
So they'll be paying you for the electricity?
We've got an agreement with Chaparral.
We just discussed the issue of reselling electricity at our last meeting in regards to Big Chief RV Park. Is that a violation of city ordinance?
I think I'd prefer to discuss that in either an executive session or after I do some research on that.
We believe that it's within the rights of our contract with the city. Since we're not under a rate schedule for a city ordinance, we're under a contract that our contract allows for that. Currently, we provide electricity to Lindy under the same sort of agreement, and they're within our boundaries.
Mr. Bradshaw, are you happy with what they've agreed to so far?
Well, like you said, we've had several meetings with them. Our main concern was making sure that we were protecting our property at the fairgrounds and the RV facilities, because we do have planned future expansions in that area, so I think we finally got to a point where we're getting real close on the final.
Great, great. We're happy to have you.
Thank you, we're happy to be here. I have copies of the presentation that you just saw. If I could leave those here
Yes.
with you, I'm happy to do that.
Please.
How far down is this pipeline?
3 foot, except for,
It's 3 feet in many areas. We've been talking about, in certain areas, I think there's requirements to be at least 2 feet. We've talked about, is there any requirement to go any deeper? It's 2 or 3 feet in the city area.
My understanding is it's 3 feet, other than where it intersects with existing utilities, there will be at least 2 feet of separation.
That's correct. We'll be underneath any intersection with city utilities. That's kind of been one particular item we've addressed pretty specifically, is what do we do at those intersection points? We understand that we both agree those are sensitive areas for both of us.
So as far as the safety element goes, there's no danger of flammable,
Correct.
but it's pressurized, the
It is.
pressure generated by that, so.
It
What
is.
if someone digs and accidentally hits the pipeline?
Well, we've got a number of protections against that. Two that actually been suggested by the city, and we've been very, very amenable to agreeing to. One is what we call bury tape, is to line the entire line with some bury tape so you know where that is. You have a locator where you can figure out where it is. Another instance where we intersect with those utilities, where we probably would be doing most of the digging, is have some orange mesh material, kind of that safety fence stuff. Well, instead of using it that way, we'll put it down so that when you're digging and you see that, you know, hey, there's something below. So at the intersection points, that's where we would put that. This line is also regulated by the Federal Department of Transportation, what they call their PHMSA group, and they're in charge of pipeline safety. And this line will be installed and constructed based on their safety guidelines.
And if I may, another concern we had was the removal of trees and potential damage to trees in the park areas. So that was something that, as we look through some of the easement requirements, our concern was they was gonna potentially go in and clear the entire easement. And as you know, we had this done last year in some areas on some pipelines where they had new requirements where they were required to actually fly the line to inspect it. So we actually lost some trees in Feaster Park because of that, because they had an easement on the pipeline and the trees came down because that was a new requirement. We just wanted to make sure we were getting everything covered, protected in that aspect, that we want to try to salvage everything we can in our park area and try to leave it the way it is. So that was another thing that took a little while to work through.
Well, that was next, was about the trees in the area, so.
They are to stay unless, and if they are damaged during construction, I guess there's a part of the easement where they'll pay us market value.
anybody else? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, comments from commissioners and staff.
I have several commissioners. Give me just a second. In our staff meeting today, we went over projects that we're currently working on and some upcoming. So I've got something from each of the departments. I'll go through that very quickly. If you would like, I can email that to you if I go through these too fast. In the electric department, they are completing the electric install for the SECTEM expansion. replacing defective poles throughout the entire electric system. So you may see them out all throughout the different areas and replacing those poles. And Crystal Engineering has been on site to conduct oil sample training for the electricians that we have on staff. If you recall, we have paid Criswell in the past for this oil sampling, so he's training our employees to be able to do that. In engineering, the Edgewood Street project should be complete in the next 2 weeks. That project has gone very well. KDOT will hold an on-site meeting in the next few days regarding the 2015 geometric improvement project, and that's at 8th and Northeast. And plans have been submitted for the 2014 geometric improvement project at 4th and Northeast. So those plans have been submitted. On the street repair project, there's a preliminary design work has been completed on the First and Central intersection, and the other 6 intersections in that project are slated for replacement are under design. The street maintenance project, Tri-State is preparing bid documents for crack sealing, and the Nova Chip overlay will be placed on South Walnut sometime in the next month. The Finance Department, the Treasurer's closing out the Neighborhood Stabilization Project and will begin working with a collection agency. We'll be establishing a written policy on our procedures to follow when we have customers who skip town and leave us with the final bill. So there'll be something brought back to you on that. Following the work session that we had last week that was discussed the wastewater rates, those are being finalized and anticipate this to be on the next agenda. And we do need to set a date for a work session to discuss the electric rates. And of course, Stephanie's knee-deep in it, but all the departments are working on their budget and getting all of those figures to her to put into the final budget document. And then we'll schedule work sessions with you, probably the end of July, to go over the budget. Excuse me. The fire department, they are continuing their hydrant testing. That should be complete by the middle of July. 2 firefighters are being sent to a Swift water technician class in Arkansas, and then those 2 will come back and train the others in the Swift water rescue. The firefighter 1 class will be held at CCC in July, and we'll be doing some teaching there. And we recently had 2 additional firefighters complete their EMT training. Next year we'll send 2 more. And the fire department is continuing to do their business inspections where they go in and check the businesses for any violation. Housing department, there are 4 projects underway. 1109 West First is complete, and that's listed with the realtor. To date, we have not received any offers, and we are looking for 1 additional project to start working on housing rehab. IT, the in-town wireless project, 87 access points have been installed, and there'll be 100 more installed in the next 2 weeks, which that will basically complete that project. Personnel's working on a wage and benefit survey. Planning Department, SECTAM has begun their expansion project, and then he'll be doing the inspections for that. There was a rezoning case presented to the Planning Commission last week for property on MacArthur Road, and that will be brought to the commission on the June 22nd meeting. The police department's working on their Click Step seatbelt program, and they also continue with DUI saturation patrols, and they are working on the grant for the bulletproof vest. You approved that purchase, hoping that a portion of that will be able to be paid for with the grant, and Diane's working on getting that submitted. Public Works, if you're traveling down the highway on 11th Street, you're seeing that we are doing some joint repair on 11th Street. The property that was recently acquired northeast of Walmart out on 5300 Road, the Public Service Department has demolished the structures on that property. Asphalt, 15 ton of asphalt has been ordered to do some utility cut repairs tomorrow. And we're seeing probably 2 to 3 water leaks a day, so the water crews are out taking care of the water leaks. The Water Department annual report is being finalized, and that'll be sent out to all customers prior to July 1st. And the screen at the bottom of the pump pit at the water treatment facility, that work is very nearly completed. So those are day-to-day activities. We do have a project list, a lengthy project list that we're working on, and we'll get that updated and be going over some of those projects with you at a future meeting. A couple of miscellaneous items. We did install a computer kiosk on the second floor. It's just outside customer service office, and that's a general public access computer. There are 2 websites that you can access. One is the Coffeyville website, and the other is the State of Kansas website. So that will be available for people to come in, apply for jobs that are available with the City of Coffeyville. They'll be able to pay their utility bills online if they choose. They can access the public legal notices, so those are always available to the public if they want to look at those. And then just the general Coffeyville information that's on the website, and also the State of Kansas's site. The Aquatic Center will close tomorrow at 4:15. There will be, the Coffeyville swim team will be having a meet, so they're closing at 4:15 to prepare for the meet. It starts at 6 o'clock, and the swim team will be hosting Fort Scott. Got a couple of things that we talked about at the last meeting that want to bring up. I've had a couple commissioners talk about the signs in the at 5th and Northeast on the northwest corner that were obstructing visibility. So the police went out and verified, yes, it was difficult to see around that corner. Engineering and code enforcement measured, and those signs were in the city's right-of-way. So they talked to the owner of the signs, and those signs have been removed. We do have, and also you mentioned a transient vendor that had been in the Jake's Fireworks parking lot that was obstructing visibility. And when, of course, they were already gone, but when they come back, we can make sure that they're scooted back farther off on the parking lot, so that one won't be a problem. The signs in the right-of-way, we do have ordinances that govern that. They're very restrictive. If we do strictly enforce those, there'll be some signs that people put out that are temporary that will no longer be put out. So we have enforced it when it's been a visibility issue. Most recently, well, the one at 5th and Northeast, at 11th and Buckeye, there were a lot of signs in the Casey's parking lot, or right-of-way. And so those have been taken down. We talked to the owner, and they removed those. So I think that we may have to be careful about all right-of-way signs. It becomes very restrictive. There is a model sign ordinance, a temporary sign ordinance that we received when we got our codification information, something that we may want to consider. If you'd like, I can get you a copy of that to look at to see if you'd be interested in that. It does have the availability of temporary signs. You would have to get a permit. You have to determine how many days they'd be good. And then, you know, in any ordinance that we adopt, then we've got to determine who's going to enforce that and go out and make sure that the signs are removed at the end of 90 days. So, you know, there's a little give and take on any of that. But if you're interested, I will get that for you to look at. And if it's something you're interested in, we could include that when we finalize our codification.
What about trees and bushes?
Now, that is addressed in our ordinance.
There are some places where you have to keep inching out that you can't see around them.
Code enforcement, there were a couple of addresses at the last meeting that were mentioned, and we gave those to code enforcement. They have to issue a letter, and then, you know, they're given so long to remove them. So it's like the grass, sometimes it takes just a little longer. But any addresses that you give, we do get that right to code enforcement. So do you want to see the model sign ordinance, just to look at it, the temporary sign ordinance to look at? Are you fine with how we're doing it with when there's visibility issues?
I'd like
that,
to see a copy.
Okay. And the final thing that I have is Fred Wigley was here at the last meeting to discuss the RV park and the metering through the electric metering through the meters that he installed. We did do some research with KMEA member cities, the Kansas Municipal Energy Agency member cities. We didn't find any other municipalities that allow the sub-metering for that at the RV parks. So we need to determine if the commission wants to pursue that. We just, after Fred left last week, we had no more, or 2 weeks ago, we didn't have any discussion on that. So need to see what your feelings are.
I say no, I think it's gonna be an accounting nightmare, and how are you gonna meter it?
I say no too.
What do you think, Commissioner?
Well, that's a pretty unanimous spoken no.
I will relay that to Fred and Larry Olson, the gentleman that spoke. We were not able to find any campgrounds that charged an additional cost for the electric. So I'll relay
Did you ask that gentleman? He seemed to claim there were.
He indicated that they talked to Garden City about it, but we didn't get any information that they actually have a separate charge for the electric.
Just threw out some.
I figured that we'd get a list.
Well, he threw out some generalities. He wasn't specific on anything, so I don't think he really knew what he was talking about. He might have been a hearsay or something like that, but.
That's all I have, Commissioners.
Anybody else? Yeah, you got anything?
Do we have a new police chief?
Yes, that was one thing.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do we have a new police chief now?
There will be an announcement very shortly.
Oh, okay, I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Okay.
Are you interested?
Oh, no.
I don't have anything.
I got a cousin Pancho that would like that. Well.
Stephanie, I got one more on the appropriations. We spent $8,000 to Kansas Municipal Energy Agency. What was that for? I can tell you a page if you need that.
Yes, please.
33. Do we have to pay a fee to to belong to that association or something? Is that what it is?
I believe that's the work that Jerry McKenzie is doing for us. Isn't it billed through KMEA? Yeah.
We also do pay dues.
Ring a bell.
So what is it?
It's a,
This is work that Jerry McKenzie is helping us with our SPP submission, and he bills KMEA, and then KMEA turns around and bills the city. That's how it has been set up since the beginning.
So what is he doing again? I think I'm lost.
He's helping us with our revenue requirement, which is required for our submission for SPP. SPP, right?
So- Okay, all right, I get that part. Revenue back.
There you
Bingo,
go.
that did it. That did it. Thank you. I don't have anything else either.
I just want to say today is my 41st wedding anniversary, and I'm here, and my husband's there somewhere, so.
Oh, my gosh,
so,
that poor guy.
that poor guy.
If that's the case, I will take a motion to take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll go into executive session.
It's just a 10-minute session.
Okay, we'll just,
It's up to you, but
You're only gonna take 10 minutes, so why don't we just go ahead with the
bingo.
the
All right.
meeting?
We'll go in, I'll take a motion to go into executive
I
session.
make a motion to go to exec session for no more than 10 minutes.
Okay, great.
was there a second? I didn't hear the
Yeah,
second.
Don seconded.
Second?
Motion was made by Commissioner Gonzalez and seconded by Commissioner Edwards to adjourn to executive session for discussion of non-elected personnel to reconvene on or before 7:50.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.